When I think about this federal legislation, I think about the cycle that we are breaking for our people. I think about the great solace that I feel as a grandmother. I know that my children, my grandchildren, and my great grandchildren will not experience the child welfare system that we experienced as a nation. This federal legislation honoring our Children, Families, and Nation Act, it represents that breaking of a cycle that we've been in for 500 years. This legislation is so important because it's going to be based on Peguis values, traditions. Those are the things that have not left us. And this legislation embraces all of those things. It does not exclude anyone from the process of taking care of that child. And this legislation, it signals our process to decolonize from the great tragedies that many of our people experienced.
It's very important because our people have not had a say, in how to do things. They've been more or less told how to do things, and those things have not worked for our people. So if you give them a voice, give them their voice back, then they can have input and they can be part of everything. Because unless it's law, the outside won't listen. For me, it's all about family. It's all about getting those children and families together and keeping them together, because I'm a residential school survivor. I know what it's like to be taken from your family and not being able to go home. The family unit is very, very important. We have a really, really big job ahead of us, but we have the support of Chief and Council, which is very important, because we weren't allowed to work with them before, which is crazy, because they're elected leaders by the people. They do what the people want. So, we have a chance to become whole. We have a chance to be a family together again. It's really exciting. I'm really excited.
We had initiated taking over Child and Family Service as an independent First Nation way back in the mid-'80s. And since then, we were in pursuit of our own legislation. And today, we're going to be the first First Nation in Manitoba to undertake legislative control of our children and our families through Child and Family Services. And it's going to be managed and administered and determined by the people of Peguis. Through this legislation, it offers us that opportunity to keep kids within their families and extended family settings. And as a community, as a tradition, Peguis has always aspired to keep our families together, and this legislation offers that.
This will allow our people to know that, no, we're here to take care of you, we're here to work with you, we're here to empower you. We want you to take all the programs that we think that would be best for you in the community. And, we want to keep our children here and be with family and family members, grandparents. I think it's really important that we have the community members have their input into this law. Like I said before, our people were not used to something like this to be involved. And now that they have that opportunity and know that, hey, this is going to help us with our children. Hey, this is going to help us with more programming. This is going to be the things that we need in our community. We have that opportunity to draft this now. And I think that it's really important that when this community engagement, that it's stressed out to the community and to our families, that we're here for you. We're here to help you. We're here to protect you. This is a great opportunity. And I certainly hope that everyone in the community takes advantage of and have a say in this.
We have the inherent right to look after our children. So does everybody else in this world have that inherent right. As a parent, the opportunity to give their child the best possible life. Minno bimad ziwind in our language. And within our language, there is rules and there's laws, there's procedures and protocols to every part of life. It was in our language, it was in the way we spoke, and that did us justice. Children weren't left alone. We had traditional adoption, traditional rearing of children from time immemorial. We've looked after our brother's children when our brother couldn't do it anymore.
I embrace and endorse the Honoring Our Children vision. I'm a former long-standing board member at the Southern First Nation Network of Care, overseeing numerous CFS agencies. Every opportunity I had to make an address to the provincial representatives that would come sit at our table, I told them the decisions that you make at the provincial level do not reflect well at the grassroots level where it counts. The vision of Honoring Our Children does just that. The great thing about the grassroots level is we know the people personally. We know the needs, we know the history, and we can make the decisions that would best reflect upon the parent and their children. Who better to implement that and address that than our own peoples? I look forward to working hand in hand with those involved to help implement this into our community for the betterment of our children.
You know, for me, it's almost like the government taking that step to say, maybe we didn't know everything, and maybe we should have just left people alone and kind of minded our own business and say, maybe you guys did know what you were doing and can figure it out. And to me, that's a really good thing. So that's the way that I look at that new legislation. The government is saying, you know, we were wrong, and we want to give everything back to you. And it's not just a small thing, it's a huge thing, because it's our children. It's like the very thing they took away, now they're saying, we're so sorry. And who better to be able to figure all that out and how to help our children than our people?
With this new legislation being brought into place now, it's going to allow those family ties to have a better chance and have a better way of healing and regaining that family structure. So it's a combination of everything that we think makes a community healthy, makes a family strong, and most certainly to provide the loving necessities that a child deserves as they grow up, so that they become a strong individual and know who they are, and they have a sense of direction. So it's an exciting time because it's something that is long overdue, something we've been working here in the lodge and in the past 30 years. That's what it was really all about, was learning it for ourselves so that we can pass it on to our children.
It's the most significant piece of federal legislation and the first federal legislation for our First Nation. It is going to welcome our children back home. We're acknowledging them no matter where they reside in Canada. So this legislation is far-reaching, and it applies to all Indigenous members on and off reserve and within Canada. We come from 500 years of trying to fight for our values, our traditions, our customs, and our people aren't going to have to fight anymore once this legislation comes into effect. Our children aren't going to have to fight to know who they are as Anishinaabe. They're going to have that in their own community, whether they're in the urban center or in Canada. And that's what this is all about. It's about bringing home our children. They may not reside in the community, but it's about connecting. And it's not just physical, it's emotional, it's psychological, it's spiritual, most importantly.
So under the auspices of Bill C-92 that came out on January 1st, 2020, that legislation affirms that the First Nation has the right to create their own child welfare legislation, and that's what we've been doing over the past year. So over the past year, as we developed this legislation, and we've gotten to a point where we're saying to Canada and Manitoba, we're ready to enter into negotiations for a coordination agreement. We sent that notice of intent out on January 20th to Canada and Manitoba, and that basically invites them to participate in negotiations over a 12-month period to establish this coordination agreement. And then the coordination agreement itself basically sets out the fiscal requirements for Peguis to implement this act.
It gives me great solace that my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren will not experience a broken system. They will experience a circle where they will have the elders, they will have the grandmothers, they will have their history. They'll have an opportunity to form and develop their identity, but most importantly, feel a strong sense of belonging. And that's what we are striving for. We had our coming into force ceremony on January 21st, 2022. And what that really meant and what it really symbolized was that that day, our nation began providing services to its registered members. And so that is, historic because the devastating effects of colonization and child welfare was used as a tool to further assimilate our people. And all of our people know that the removal of our children from our community, from our families, was the removal of our nations.
When we started as little boys, we grew up traveling in ceremony, and at one point those are the only songs we knew, ceremony. As we got a little bit older, we went to a powwow in the community, and we've always known about the powwow and things like that, but when it comes to singing those types of songs, that's something we wanted to do. And of course, we got the blessings, from our elders, from our aunts and uncles, just to be sure that that is okay with them. So we traveled to many powwows all over the world, and it's been such a wonderful experience, and it's an indescribable feeling sitting at that drum.
We have brought in our flags and our people. Our nation is standing before us. At the heart of it is our drum, the Mashumas Dewe gun, and our pipes, our knowledge keepers, our elders. As we recognize our past, we also recognize our future. As today is a good day in our history, for today we make history. Not only with the provincial government, but the Canadian government and this great place called Canada, to reunite and give back to us what is rightfully ours. Oh, ahoy! I want to call forward to sit at the front table Chief Glenn Hudson, representing Peguis Nation, representing our agency, Peguis Child and Family Services, Louise McCorster, the chairman. From Canada, Minister Patty Hadu. Manitoba Premier Heather Stephenson. And Minister Rochelle Squires to come and sit at the head table.
So we have two documents that are being signed today. The main document is the coordination agreement, which is signed by all four parties, Peguis, First Nation, Peguis Child and Family Services, Manitoba, and Canada. And we have an additional document that also is being signed amongst three parties. It's the Canada Fiscal Agreement. It's going to be signed by Peguis First Nation, Peguis Child and Family Services, and Canada. So those two documents will be signed by those three parties. Manitoba will only be signing the coordination agreement as a party to that agreement itself. So I'm going to ask that each of the representatives open up the document. There's a signature page on each of these documents. We're going to have 5 documents signed, 4 documents that are going to be signed. Each party can take back their own bound document. And then we're going to have a 5th loose document that we're going to be signing by all parties for ensuring that we can PDF the document and be sharing that on our respective websites. So if we can have each leader pick up the pen and sign at their assigned signature line, and then look at the cameras.
It's a beautiful day.
These are all signed, so I think we're set. Little girls, smile. We have just one here. One left for me? Not for you.
It's an agreement for coordinating services and also for funding those services. Child and family services.
There we go.
You guys don't need to sign this one, but this is the one to sign.
Congratulations to each of the parties on signing these documents. It's a new day.
Extra one there?
We want to thank our chairman of the board that's been there since conception. We came from a dilapidated building, a hospital that was built in the early 30s, and they made a go of it. They were the second community that had its own mandate, first in Manitoba. Today they are the first. We are the first community to have our own law. At this time, I would welcome Mr. Earl Stevenson to give you the details of why it's so important and how it's going to affect our people.
Our ancestors left us with many teachings. We have to follow those teachings. We have to adhere to those teachings. What they shared with us is sacred law, inherent law, indivisible, something that is always carried with us. We can't forget that. We have to maintain our accountability to those teachings and to our ancestors. That's what these documents do. They give us the resources so that we can be accountable to our ancestors, accountable to those yet unborn, and accountable to those people with us here today. The Canada funding agreement is for 3 years, starting this fiscal year, this current fiscal year. And through the course of negotiations, we arrived at our final numbers just this past weekend. So we were at the very, very last minute, coming together with Canada on our financial numbers. And I've been asked to inform that the value of the agreement over these 3 years is coming in at $319 million. This is to provide all aspects of child and family service delivery. These services are to be made available for our members wherever they reside nationally. So I want to thank our team. I want to thank Canada. I want to thank Manitoba. I want to thank Chief and Council for their dedication to this work. And I think the resources and the capacity that can flow from this funding will allow us to do that great work that we need to do to make our communities healthier, to make our community stronger. Peguis.
Children and families naturally want to be together. Moms want to be with their children, probably more than anything else, and children want to be with their moms and dads more than anything else. And so this work is about restoring care and control of children to the community, to Peguis First Nation and Peguis Child and Family Services, who will now have not just the authority, but the tools and the financial resources to be able to focus on keeping families together instead of a historical child welfare system that really removal was often one of the first actions that happened. The federal Liberal government had a vision of this number of years ago. It took a while for the legislation to go through, but it really, with the leadership of First Nations across the country, we did arrive at a place where we now have this new law that enables exactly those actions. Combined with that, there's a financial commitment of the federal government to make sure that the tools are there so Child and Family Services can do a good job. Because, of course, we know that many children were apprehended because of poverty reasons, lack of food, inadequate housing, the inability to care for children as a result of poverty. Those are not good reasons to remove a child. Instead, now with the enabling legislation and the financial resources, families will have the tools they need to stay together.
It's been a very emotional day, a very historic day, and it's such a humbling and honoring opportunity for me to be here.
Well, with the resources we have freedom. The authority comes from our inherent rights, and it's given to us from Chief and Council, but we're also going to be guided by our elders as well in terms of giving us direction so that we do that work in a good way. So we need to keep those teachings in mind from our elders and from our ancestors so that we do this good work, but also the fact that we have that ability now to do that good work. We're no longer mandated by the province for the past year, which means that we can do our work in our way according to our traditions and according to our own legal systems, not the colonial or settler government's legal regime, but through our own legal systems. So that's kind of, the heart of the process is making sure we do this according to our laws, according to our customs, so that our families and our children know who they are and where they're going. And with doing that work in a good way, that also means that level of accountability goes back to our community members and our elders so that there's a common understanding of what has been achieved and what needs to be achieved. So we're confident in terms of the process as long as we do it in a good way.
I hear the grandmothers, I hear the grandfathers, the ones that have gone, that have passed. They're celebrating in the spirit world. They're dancing for the ones that are here. And, I honor them for standing with us all and picking us up when we fell. And we fell many times to get to where we're at. And it was never enough for our partners in terms of the work that we did. But, we didn't give up. And as I shared earlier today, our grandmothers, our grandfathers, our ancestors, they gave up everything just for our survival. They gave away their bundles. They gave away their language just so that they could give us the gift of life, so that we would be on our journey at any point of time. There would be that moment that we would have, and that moment we had today. It was that moment. It was everybody coming, from the past, the present, and in the future coming, to clear our path. And it's our responsibility to reclaim who we are, to begin that healing journey. And that's where we start tomorrow. And it is a difficult journey, but, it's for our children. As a grandmother, I could only imagine what my grandmother wanted for me. I could only imagine the great love that she had. And my great-grandmother, I could only imagine the love that they had. And that's what's really pulled us through to where we're at today. And today, symbolizes, as difficult as that road was, it symbolizes the relentless work that we've done, the relentless fight that we've had to fight to get to where we're at. You know, and you cannot be selfish in this work when you're devoting your life to the people. So I thank Jimani too. I thank the grandmothers and the grandfathers in the past, in the present, and the ones to come for trusting us. As we ask for that trust, we have to give that trust as well.
On January 31st of 2023, that's when we finally were able to sign our coordination agreement and our funding agreement. And once we had that funding in place, that's when we were actually able to work towards full implementation of our legislation. And part of the full implementation of our legislation was bringing in our elders and bringing them in to participate in part of the alternatives to the court process. So now that we have our funding in place and the resources and the capacity to undertake that work, we have started to work on those elder orientations and workshops for each of these alternatives to the court processes. And we've received a great deal of interest from our elders for their wanting to participate. So now that we have our funding in place, we are now able to bring our elders together and to train them up and provide them with that orientation for each of those respective alternatives to the court process. And that's, again, another very exciting process in terms of making sure that we do this work our way in accordance with our Indigenous legal traditions and directed and guided by our elders. So very excited to be put in this position that our elders can actually be part of that hands-on process for helping out our families and helping out our children.
For me, it's been a really great experience. I've attended all the elders gatherings, and they're surely needed. And I'm glad that Peguis Town Family is, doing this type of thing for us and the elders. And it's good to get updated. And I've been on part of the elder circle and going to some of the training for elders, and here learning more, meeting up with elders here in one place. has been fantastic, and it's so nice to include them all, as many as we can, get the knowledge from them, get their words from them, just recognize them. Some of them, maybe more silent than others, and just to recognize them and pay attention to them, pay high respect to them like we should. I've been telling the younger people, when one of us pass, it's like a whole encyclopedia is gone. That's what I like about this experience here. It's good that we can include everyone here, but more importantly that we can pass our knowledge on, and the people that were not included before now are included.
We always knew as Indigenous people that it is our inherent right to provide care for our children, for our people, and the women have always gathered silently to do that work. So, I honor our women, I honor our grandmothers. I recognize the great efforts that have been made by leadership for us to be sitting here today, to keep, pushing on with our treaty rights.
Through the hard work of our past leadership, the people involved, our current directors, our past directors, they had this vision of taking control of their own child welfare. Peguis being the first First Nation in Canada to achieve this coordination agreement is very, very honoring and very important. And right now, this day, that vision has come to fruition.
In January 2024, it will be 2 years that we've gone live with our legislation honoring our Children, Families and Nation Act. And I could say today we're working with our children and families using our traditional ways of taking care of our own children. And, one of those ways is customary care agreements, customary acceptance. What you'll also hear about is the role of our elders and them taking their rightful place in our society.
Some of our elders are here today at the women's gathering. I invited them and asked them if they can come and sit and share stories, just to be with our women here. It's the women in our lives that support us and provide us with that strength to sit with, to talk with, to laugh with, to make memories, and, to be able to connect and share stories with one another so that they don't feel like they're alone, that that women don't feel like they're isolated or oppressed, right? As Anishinaabe women, there's that historical aspect of where there was always that, no, you're not going to rise, we're going to keep pushing you down. But today, that's not going to happen. Our nation and our women, we're growing, we're healing, we're strengthening, and we're supporting each other in a good way.
Customary care is a traditional practice that has existed amongst our ancestors. It allows our families to take control in their healing journey and ensuring that children stay with family. It is so traumatizing to our children for them to be moved with strangers, and it can be hard on our parents when they don't know where their children are and who they're with. So customary care allows the parents to identify someone who they trust in their family group to step up and care for that child while they are on their healing journey. And it allows the family to come together and work and build and gather around that child to ensure that that child has the best possible road in life, and putting that power back into the family's hands to ensure that children stay with their kin. By watching that natural progression and seeing how family has come together to be a support to moms and dads, it's beautiful. And you just really see the whole family blossom as a whole rather than just one individual person. And for us and our people, growing and strengthening our family bonds is so important because for so long it's been taken away from us. So we're on that path of strengthening our families and just really putting the power back in in the idea of family raising children, because we were never meant to raise children alone.